Hey everybody, Pilot Rhino, Ryan Gromfin here with the RV10 build today. We're going to talk about this guy, the pitot tube. All right, so first thing I want to quickly kind of talk about here is what I've done so far and what I plan to do. As you can see, I've got the blue and green lines run. One's for the pitot, one's for the AOA. I don't know exactly which one is which yet. Doesn't matter. It's in the instructions. And then I've got my electrical run. The red and black are 14 gauge. This is 20 gauge because the white only carries 1 amp. It's just a signal wire. According to the instructions, they supply you with, depending on how long, because these could carry pretty high loads. So the DYNON instructions tell you depending on how many feet it's run. My estimation was at about 17 feet, which is the upper limit of the 14. And then you go to 12 from 17 to 25. I spoke to the guys at Steinair, and they said that they run 14 for the RV10 pitot. So that's what I went ahead and bought from them, was 14. So what I've done here, as you can see, I've gone back and forth. I've kind of waffled on whether I was going to do conduit or not. I am not doing conduit for the wires that I know I'm going to need, including all of the stuff for the zip tips and the lights, because those I'm going to wire all that and test all that before I seal this up. I'm also going to run an extra couple of strands of fishing line or something, so if I have to pull through, I could. I did run this extra line. I have this CPVC that I bought. I'm going to return it. Just don't like the idea of it being closed in and all that. So I did run this for the antenna, the nav antenna, which is going to be the coax style cable. And then on the other wing, I ran the same stuff as a backup conduit, because I'll use my zip tip and my autopilot and all that, and then I'll have this as a backup. If I decide to put another nav antenna in the other wing tip, or a comm antenna or something, GoPro wiring, I'll just have it. So back to the pitot tube. So first thing I did yesterday was kind of determine where this is going to go. It's going to go one bay left. This is the left wing. It's going to go one bay left of where all this aileron bell crank situation is. And it's going to share these 3 main screws or main rivets with the skin, and then there's a L bracket that you put on the back side of this. I had to bend this a little bit so it matches the contour there. That wasn't a big deal. And then I had to do some sanding and smoothing out in here for the pitot to fit in. Now they don't do a very good job of explaining this in the instructions. I had to do some research, but if you'll see here, there's some thick parts of metal. Those 2 there and those 2 there. When this is really hard to do with one hand. When this is fit in through there, you drill through the mast into here and then tap it. I'm going to use 440s. I haven't decided if I'm going to use little button heads or countersunk. For now, I just have a bunch of hex head 440s that I'll just use temporarily, and then I'll decide. I could either countersink it or just use button heads, whatever. But my neighbor runs a machine shop. He's bringing home a 440 drill and tap tomorrow. But basically what you have to be careful of from the research I did is you want to go through this metal, but not much deeper, and run the risk of hitting these lines. So I've done all my measurements with my calipers. I wrote it all down. I know I marked these lines, so I know where the center of the of this is. I know the depth. It's 0.7 inches, so 0.35 inches is the center. And then I wrote it down somewhere 0.2 inches deep. So I'm gonna set my my drill depth to 0.2 inches deep, and that will take me through the mast, through this, just barely into the silicone, which is what I want. And that's it, but just barely through the silicone. So that's gonna be how that supports that. Now the last thing is kind of how all this magic happens. So then once this guy is in here, I'll have to flare these tips, which sucks. I just gave back my flaring tool that I borrowed from someone like a month ago because I finished my fuel tanks, and now I'm just gonna buy a flaring tool. I hate to do it, but what are your thoughts? I'm gonna get the Rollo flare. That's what everyone says, but I'll bend these and flare them, and they'll go through here somehow, and they'll connect to these two lines, and then all of these come on it, and they'll connect to this guy. So then let me show you what I did here. This is kind of fun. I built this bracket, so let me switch it, actually. So this is gonna mount right here. And then I'm gonna use number 6 screws. Now, I was gonna mount this to the door, but then I was like, man, like, it's just a lot of wires next to that, and then every time I do an inspection, I have to disconnect this, and kind of didn't have a good place to put it because the curved side is here, and I obviously didn't want to put it here. So I played with all these different things. I was gonna mount it to this side, and then you could unscrew it, and you could put nut plates and this whole thing. And then what I determined was it doesn't really matter that the curved side is here because the flat side is here. So what I did is I took, this is like pretty thick aluminum that I had lying around. I put nut plates, so I drilled through, you can see I drilled through where it's curved. Put the nut plates here, riveted it here, did the same thing at the bottom, and now I just tested it. I don't have the correct number 6 screws, so I'm not leaving them in, but I just tested it and it mounts perfect right there. It's totally accessible through here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of shove, I'll get some sort of organization, but I'll probably use one more of these guys. I'll put just the suspension mount, not the conduit, but I'll probably put like one like right here or something, and then I'll route the wires probably from the box through the suspension, through that hole, put all my connectors here, use some sort of something to hold the wires there so I can just reach in and unhook them, or maybe I'll do something here, I don't know. And then basically, I have a Molex connector coming for these guys that I'll connect to the box, and then that'll wrap up the pitot. Now, I can't install it until I do my skins because, as per Jason Ellis's video, you are going to want to mount this to the skin. Here's a template, comes with it. You're going to want to mount this to the skin, put it in place, and then drop it in here. You're not going to want to mount it here because then it's really hard to get the skin over this, because the skin doesn't just push on. The skin has to hook over the flap. It has to like hook back here, and then if you hook it there, you can't get the reach here. So thanks to Jason Ellis for that video. That was helpful. Yeah, so that's kind of the beginning of wiring up these wings. So after I get the pitot done, then I will start, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'll probably run the rest of the wires to the zip tips, but again, I can't do the zip tips until I do this. Oh, I'll finish this. That's what I'm working on. So I'll finish the, man, I was all prepared to finish these up, and then I looked at the instructions, and there's fiberglass work that you have to do. You have to do fiberglass. You have to seal off the back of these. So when you trim it, I'll do a video on it, but when you trim it and it fits in there, then you have to get like some styrofoam and then fiberglass. So I had to order epoxy, I had to order fiberglass. It's just like, man, seriously? I thought these were gonna be a piece of cake. I thought these tips were just gonna go on and I was gonna be done with that, but no. So finish the pitot, finish these, then run all the wire and start working on the skins and then button the wings up and get them out of here. All right, y'all. Hope you're enjoying. If you have any questions as normal, put them below. Check me out at Patreon if you want. Check me out on, or if you decide to order a Vans kit, go ahead and maybe use my builder number if you want. That would be awesome. If not, you guys just enjoy these videos, and I'm happy to help with anything I can. And I appreciate all of your help. Have an amazing day. Okay, so, hey, this was a pretty stressful job because it's a $450 pitot tube that you don't want to screw up. So I talked about it previously where I have to drill holes and tap them 440 so you can see the kind of the thicker blocks and you don't want to go too deep. So I have all my measurements like I've talked about a couple of times, but just want to kind of walk you through it. So I had the tape there as you saw. I transferred the lines after this was installed, obviously, or like this. And then I punched, you know, my little pop center punch. I drilled a pilot hole with a 1/16. I think the smallest bit I have, 1/16? I think so. Well, whatever, with the smallest drill bit I had. Drilled the pilot hole, and I used these drill stops. And I set the drill stop to 0.25. It says 0.2 here, but I double checked everything. I set them to 0.25. I even checked it, like I held it against the table, and then with my my caliper, I made sure that it was 0.25, no more. Drilled the pilot hole, drilled the hole for the tap, and then proceeded to tap with this set to a 1/4 inch. Now, I couldn't get all the way through because with the 1/4 inch, it kind of stopped. So then see if I can do this with one hand. I think I can, yep. I kind of double checked and you could see, let me hold it here. Yeah, well, you can kind of see that we're okay. So after I took it out, I redid all the holes and I put it back together and I screwed in. I don't have button head 440s yet, so I just use these little guys. Again, double check the depth, made sure, but I could not be happier with the method and how this all came out. And I just kind of deburred the holes. I finished just with a Scotch-Brite, just smoothed this out. And whew, okay, didn't ruin a $450 pitot tube, so that's great. So then, yeah, we're just kind of wrapping things up here, and then we'll start on the skins. So there you go.